Take off forward. Take off forward.
Ladies and gentlemen, the program will start in just a few minutes.
Take off, forward.
Good afternoon to everyone. Sorry to keep you waiting. We are so glad that you could be present here with us today. And it just goes to show how interesting and timely the discussion today will be.
Recording in progress.
Now, before anything else, I just want to know, how is everyone's 2022 going? I do hope that everyone is safe, healthy, and doing well, both physically and mentally, as I know that there is a continuous rise in the COVID-19 cases, not just in the Philippines, but all over the world. And so to our distinguished partners, our friends from the media, bloggers, and everyone else tuning in, my name is Mark Nelson, WWF Philippines National Ambassador, and I will be your host for the WWF Philippines Extended Producer Responsibility Roadmap launch. Now, this, of course, is a project in line with WWF's vision of no plastics in nature by 2030. Ooh, fingers crossed for that. Now, in case you didn't know, the Extended Producer Responsibility, or EPR, is a scheme that obliges companies to take full accountability for the products that they put in the market. Now, these companies pay a certain fee to ensure that plastic packaging is properly managed, and at the same time, practice eco-design and the elimination of unnecessary plastics. Now, we launched this in 2020 with a study that highlighted the need to adopt this EPR scheme in the Philippines. And now this second study now provides a roadmap on how we can get there. Very important. I personally, for one, look very forward to learning a little bit more about this. And so to begin things, may I please call on the national lead of the No Plastics in Nature initiative of WWF Philippines, Ms. Zarina Constantino Panopio, to give the opening remarks. Please call on. Over to you.
Thank you, Mark. I echo your message in hoping that actually everyone in this call is safe and healthy. WWF thanks everyone for being here and sharing this journey of pushing for an extended producer responsibility scheme in the Philippines. You know, January is Zero Waste Month, and it always reminds us the importance of an efficient waste reduction and management system. You mentioned the first EPR study, which was launched in 2020. It identified the challenge brought about by the country's archipelagic structure and complexity with the increasing volume of plastic waste. It also highlighted the appropriateness of adopting an EPR scheme in the country and the need to communicate this to all stakeholders, which you, our partners here, all played an important role on. The past years, the country has been making strides in addressing plastic pollution with the passage of House Bill 9147 or the Single-Use Plastic Products Regulation Act, and the Senate Bill 2425 or the EPR Act, which is now on its second reading. There's also the National Plan of Action on Marine Litter, which has been adopted by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. And then also, Philippines has been very active in advocating for a global treaty on plastic pollution, while businesses are also working on their target goals for plastic reduction and management. I I really hope that we really continue these strides, and this EPR study that we are about to share with you aims to provide guidance on how we can build on these efforts towards stopping plastic pollution. And fingers crossed nga, 2030, Mark. Similar to your valuable contribution in the first EPR study, we look forward to working with you in communicating this to all stakeholders. Thank you in advance and welcome to this launch.
All right. Thank you so much again for that, Cha. A very informative opening. Now, this kind of sets the mood for today's discussion. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, that was Ms. Zarina Constantino Panopio. She is the national lead of the No Plastics in Nature initiative of WWF Philippines. Very important role, especially nowadays. And now to discuss the EPR and WWF Philippines proposed roadmap, may I call on Attorney Ina Gingona. She is the policy officer of the No Plastics in Nature initiative of WWF Philippines. Take it away, Attorney.
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much. I'm just about to share my screen. Can everybody see my screen all right? Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the launch of our Extended Producer Responsibility Roadmap, brought to you by WWF and AMH Philippines. So as I mentioned earlier, we released a study back in 2020, which was a material flow analysis for the country and also an introductory EPR study. In this study, we found that Filipinos consume 2.15 million tons of plastic per year. 62% of these are low-value plastics, while only 37% are high-value plastics. The problem here is that 35% of all of these plastics leak into the environment, and only 9% is recycled. The high amount of low-value plastic shows the clear need for upstream solutions, and the low rate of recycling shows we need to really invest in recycling to deal with all of our high-value plastics. This can all be done under an EPR scheme. So what is EPR, or Extended Producer Responsibility? EPR schemes incentivize and require redesign of packaging and products and promote the overall reduction of waste in order to remove unnecessary plastics from the supply chain. But it also facilitates improvements for existing waste management systems and supports other downstream solutions that overall contribute to a circular economy. This has been around since the 1990s and has been adopted all over the world, including countries in Asia like Japan and South Korea. So this is our basic EPR scheme that we introduced in the first study. Under the basic EPR scheme, obliged businesses pay EPR fees to the Producer Responsibility Organization, which contracts and pays waste management operators. These waste management operators take care of the products disposed by consumers. And this Producer Responsibility Organization is answerable to the government for reporting on collection, recycling, and disposal. The Producer Responsibility Organization, or PRO for short, also is in charge of informing and educating consumers about waste reduction, segregation, and practices related and required under the EPR scheme. So as I mentioned earlier, there are many policies also in the Philippines. There's House Bill 9147, or the Single-Use Plastic Products Regulation Act, Senate Bill 2425, or the EPR Act. There's also the House Consolidated Bill on EPR, and the NPO, the National Plan of Action on Marine Litter, which identifies EPR as a policy tool. EPR is also a big part of the global treaty that WWF advocates for and that the Philippines is a big supporter of. But so let's go to the reason why we're all here today, our new study. This study presents a customized scheme and roadmap for the Philippines. So we see here that this study will present an EPR model and roadmap. This EPR model covers plastic packaging and is customized for the Philippines after consultation with stakeholders. And it also presents a roadmap including roles and duties for all stakeholders involved in the EPR scheme. So this scheme should eventually cover all household packaging of any material and as much as possible service packaging and specific single-use plastic items. The obliged companies that I'll be referring to throughout this presentation shall include the following entities: manufacturers of service plastic packaging or plastic products, manufacturers of products in plastic packaging, importers of service plastic packaging, plastic products, and products in plastic packaging. So now that we've covered the coverage and a few basic definitions, let's go on to our proposed EPR scheme. This is our proposed EPR scheme for the Philippines. So as you can see, there are many more parties involved here than there were in our basic EPR scheme. This is because we want to build this scheme to work with the existing waste management structure of the country. So first, it all starts with eco-design. Eco-design involves innovation and elimination of unnecessary plastics from the supply chain. These obliged companies must partake in eco-design in order to pay lower EPR fees, which I'll discuss later on. So these obliged companies, with any remaining necessary plastics, sell these plastics to retailers, and this makes its way to consumers. This post-consumer waste is then collected by either the LGU through private or private waste collectors who bring it to the local MRF or the informal sector. The informal sector and consumers actually can always go directly to junk shops and sell their waste for profit. The informal sector also has another option, which is to join a social enterprise or cooperative and give them the waste. These social enterprises give the waste then to the local MRF that they have existing partnerships with or can set up partnerships with. After sorting, all of the residual waste is brought to disposal facilities or end-of-life processing facilities. Any products with any value remaining are delivered to recycling companies by the local MRF and junk shops. And these recycling companies sell the products to converters. These converters use these products to create new packaging material that can be sold back to the obliged companies for their products. So as I mentioned earlier, eco-design results in lower EPR fees. So companies pay EPR fees in order to finance this whole operation. EPR fees are lower depending on the design or recyclability of their product. So EPR fees are paid to the PRO, and the PRO finances and operates the local MRFs. They coordinate with the local MRF for collection and management of their product waste. These MRFs, through their partnerships with social enterprises, then help financially support the informal sector as well through the social enterprises and cooperatives. So in terms of communication, obliged companies are required to report the amount of products and packaging that they put out into the market to the DENR or NSWMC or the PRO. The PRO also gets recycling results reported to them by the recycling companies. They in turn report these recycling results back to the DENR. The DENR is then tasked to inspect and audit both the obliged companies and the PRO. And while all of this is going on, the PRO is also tasked with conducting IEC campaigns through NGOs for consumers to make sure that they understand the EPR scheme and overall comply. But what exactly is this PRO? So the PRO is the central and most important element for establishing and operating the EPR system. Under our scheme, we recommend that there should be one mandatory PRO. The PRO is made up of a huge group of stakeholders. So it's a multi-stakeholder group. So the obliged companies are here because they are the ones who pay the EPR fees, proportionate to the type and amount of packaging or product they place in the market. They're the most essential in this PRO. NGOs and social enterprises are here as well because they have existing initiatives that are aligned with the EPR scheme. They have programs for collection or recycling or mobilizing and ensuring effective involvement of the informal sector, which is very necessary in our proposed scheme. Waste management operators are here as well to coordinate and transport the movement of waste materials to and from MRFs. And then the recycling companies are here as well for the coordination of recycling reports and potential sale of recyclates that are collected by the MRFs. They are all run by the executive board, which directly manages the operative work of the EPR scheme. This executive board defines the financial spending and investments and makes important decisions. This management can consist of one or several persons who can be appointed by the advisory board. The advisory board is made up of representatives of the industry, national and local government, NGOs, the academe, and other authorities. they provide guidance to the PROs and receive updates in return. So as I mentioned earlier, the PRO is a central and most important element for establishing and operating the EPR system, and they have many different duties. They have administrative duties, but most importantly, they have the waste management duties. The PRO, as I mentioned, comprises all EPR stakeholders and holds the collective waste management responsibility and organizes and finances all collection and treatment of waste. Their responsibility is transferred to them by the obliged companies by their payment of a fee. In doing so, the PRO becomes responsible to meet the targets for the obliged company's packaging. It supports the local government units by sharing operational responsibility in solid waste management. This also gives each MRF and each LGU an opportunity to be professionalized and established with a standardized setup and operations throughout the country. It also establishes partnerships with recycling companies for the sale of recyclates and with disposal facilities or end-of-life processing facilities for the post-processing of residuals. So the PRO, and they also inform and educate consumers, as I mentioned earlier. So the PRO is very powerful, but just because the companies pay the producers, it does not mean that they have license to pollute, but it simply represents an acknowledgement of the potential impacts that these products may have on the environment. So as I mentioned earlier, EPR fees are lower when it comes to eco-design. This is what we call eco-modulation. So when this EPR scheme highly encourages companies to develop upstream solutions to reduce or eliminate the use of plastic in their products. So we talked a lot about eliminating unnecessary plastics and also keeping only necessary plastics throughout this EPR system. So their companies may look into better options for consumers, such as refilling stations and replacing low-value packaging with high-value packaging. Because the more recyclable the product is, the more value that the product has after its use, the lower the EPR fees for the obliged companies. So EPR fees finance this whole system, and they depend on the material and total weight of the packaging introduced to the market per year. So eco-modulation is something we really push for in the scheme because we want to make sure that companies are redesigning their products and really eliminating unnecessary plastics from the value chain, as well as focusing on their downstream measures and waste management. So packaging that is easy to recycle corresponds to reduced EPR fees or bonuses, while packaging that cannot be easily recycled can entail increased EPR fees or maluses. For example, in Portugal, there are different types of packaging penalties for different types of packaging that disrupts the recycling process. So these can be things such as multi-layered materials or PET bottle with PVC labels. So these EPR fees are something that we need to first test for the economic feasibility for the country. And that's something that we can dive into, and this study is a good jumping off point from there. But so now that we've discussed this scheme and everything, how do we get there? How do we get the mandatory EPR? I'm happy to present our roadmap. So this is our roadmap for the 3 years and onwards. So within 1 year, we believe that we need to start capacity building on EPR to close the knowledge gap and create a collective aligned understanding on EPR. This is also the great time to determine unnecessary plastics in packaging and improve packaging design. Within 2 years, we believe that we must form an EPR working group and prepare voluntary EPR. This is also a time to start implementing data collection and start implementing holistic waste management under RA 9003. We can also start developing and imposing nationwide minimum standards for plastic packaging waste management. And the public awareness and communication continues throughout this whole process. Within 3 years, the legal framework for mandatory EPR can be prepared. This can start even as early as right after legislation is passed. And then by year 3, we think that we can start the mandatory PRO, and they can determine the EPR fees. And as I mentioned, continuing with public awareness and communication, because segregation at source is really the most important thing for this EPR or any waste management system to work. So when mandatory EPR is in place, there should be a mandatory PRO, which controls and enforces the mandatory EPR scheme. And so when mandatory EPR is in place, then that's the time that we can assess and optimize the amount of PROs necessary for the country. So what do we need to do? So these are the roles and duties of stakeholders. So the national government is in charge of crafting the legislation with goals and targets for EPR. We hope that this legislation will also include fiscal and non-fiscal incentives for all the people along the value chain of plastics and all of those involved in the EPR scheme. The government can also invest in necessary infrastructure for recycling and waste management, and further invest in research and development on plastic waste. Government agencies, parallel to this, can begin to organize working groups to finalize the EPR scheme. They can also work on developing a data collection system. The DNR can also can test this data collection system to ensure that when EPR is mandatory, that there's effective implementation and we can receive and audit the data sent by the PRO effectively. And the DTI must as well be involved for the proper labeling of products for protection of consumers as well. The local government is an important link and they oversee the compliance at the ground level. So they must continuously improve on their own waste management systems, as well as encourage public participation and compliance from everyone under their jurisdiction. So the obliged companies, as I mentioned earlier, these are producers and importers who bring packed goods and products onto the Philippine market. These obliged companies are responsible for paying the EPR fee or license fee to the PRO if they have already existing programs. They're responsible for meeting their targets for post-consumer plastic packaging waste. They must also eliminate unnecessary packaging, improve their packaging, and explore alternative delivery systems for a functional and holistic EPR scheme. As I mentioned earlier, this EPR fee, this payment, does not equate a license to pollute, but is simply an acknowledgement of the potential effects that their products have on the environment. So in terms of waste collectors, formal and informal waste collectors are included. It is the goal of our EPR scheme to integrate or formalize these informal workers who are already very experienced and skilled in the sorting and characterizing of various plastic waste in the country. Thus, as mentioned earlier, the proposed EPR scheme gives the informal sector choices in which they can retrieve waste materials suitably and comfortably, either by continuing their individual waste picking activities or by being integrated by social enterprises or cooperatives. Through the EPR fees, they're also given the opportunity to earn additional income by earning revenue from selling low-value plastics in addition to their income that they receive from the sale of high-value plastics. These waste collectors are the link and are responsible that each component of the waste stream reaches its intended recipient and that nothing is leaked into the environment. So the recyclers and consolidators then are in charge of collecting all of the recyclables and recovered materials to be transformed into new products. They partner with the PRO and they must comply with government standards to ensure high quality recycling and compliance with the circular economy. For the other stakeholders involved, so schools and universities must continue to develop scientific and social and economic research and different approaches to addressing plastic waste while promoting solid waste management education and raising awareness with their students. The civil society can and must continue their active role in plastic waste management to supplement the efforts of the national and local government. Civil society is also important in assisting in the integration of the informal waste sector in the scheme. Consumers, they need to be educated about the correct practices and benefits of proper waste management, but also practice waste minimization and segregation at source at home. And they are also encouraged to participate in different schemes such as take-back schemes, deposit refund schemes, home composting, and other practices or programs that might be offered by businesses for the return of their plastic products. So after all of these are our recommendations. So first, we believe that we need to implement a holistic EPR scheme led by a single nonprofit PRO to unify all the multi-sectoral efforts. We need to invest in recycling infrastructure to ensure sufficient economic benefit from the recovered materials. We need to innovate and focus on eco-design. We need to begin investing with the environment with each product that we put out into the market. We need to incentivize participation with fiscal or non-fiscal incentives to ensure participation along the whole value chain of plastics. We need to include the informal sector because they're really the most vulnerable along the waste recovery chain and really must be protected. And we need to institutionalize support for MRFs. This will give each MRF an opportunity to be professionalized. So that was our EPR scheme. And so where does EPR scheme fall into place in the whole No Plastics in Nature initiative? So WWF advocates for EPR along with the global treaty, but this really falls in between everything, between our work with businesses through plastic action to make sure that reduction targets for businesses are set and unnecessary plastics are eliminated. And we also work with cities and supporting local government units in implementing their 10-year solid waste management plan and working on waste reduction and waste management solutions. So EPR really covers the whole stretch of our projects throughout the country. So for further information regarding the study, you can contact me, Attorney Ina Gingona. And for any information regarding the No Plastics in Nature initiative in general, you may contact Zarina Panopio, our national lead. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Attorney Ina. Now, of course, if we were physically together, I'm sure we'd all be clapping. So how about we all give a virtual thank you and a round of applause to Attorney Ina for a very informative talk. Thank you so much for that. Very much appreciated. And now, to make EPR a possibility and a successful initiative, we need, of course, the help and support of our legislators and our stakeholders. So we have a recorded message from the Senator of the Republic of the Philippines and the sponsor of Senate Bill 2425, also known as the EPR Act of 2021, Ms. Cynthia Villar.
Good day to all. Thank you to the Worldwide Fund for Nature, Philippines, for inviting me to the launch of the 2022 EPR report, which suggests an EPR roadmap with timelines for the Philippines. I take this opportunity also to thank the WWF Policy Officer, Attorney Ina Gingona, for sharing valuable inputs during the crafting of the committee report version of the Extended Producer Responsibility Bill. The previous publications of WWF on the subject proved to be a useful source of information during the writing of the legislation, and we hope that we could also derive from this 2022 WWF report additional learnings that may contribute in enhancing the provisions of the bill. I'm now in the process of defending the Senate version of the EPR bill at the Senate plenary, while the House version is expected to be sponsored at the plenary next week. We are now expecting that both the Senate and the House of Representatives will be able to timely pass the EPR bill in the coming weeks. I'm strongly pushing for this EPR legislation because I believe that it will be of big help in solving our problem with plastic waste. It is not in itself the only solution, but it is certainly a big step forward towards the right direction. Moreover, pushing for EPR is in sync with my lifelong advocacy. You see, I have always been a staunch advocate and practitioner of efficient waste management, even long before I became a senator. Along with our foundation, the Villar Social Institute for Poverty Alleviation and Governance, or Villar SIPA, I have established barangay-based livelihood enterprises that are models of proper waste management and good examples of how garbage can be recycled or turned into useful end products. The raw materials we use in the livelihood projects are from waste. These are the water hyacinths for the Water Lily Handicraft Weaving Enterprise and the Handmade Paper Factory, waste coconut husk for the Coconut Weaving Enterprise and the Charcoal Making Factory, kitchen and garden waste for the Organic Fertilizer Composting Facility, and plastic waste for the Waste Plastic Recycling Factory that produce school chairs. These livelihood projects have been replicated by other organizations, and to date, we have set up over 3,000 livelihood projects nationwide, which equates to a substantial volume of waste processed as well. On the matter of helping in the reduction of plastic waste, WRC operates 3 factories nationwide that recycle plastic waste into school chairs, which are then distributed to public schools and farm schools nationwide. These factories are located in Las Piñas City to cater to the distribution of recycled plastic chairs in Luzon, another in San Miguel, Iloilo for the Visayas, and the third is in Cagayan de Oro City for Mindanao. This is my own initiative in raising awareness that we should not throw away plastic carelessly as we could recycle it to become something useful. After all, plastic waste is being described as a global plague with epidemic proportions. Truth be told, despite Omicron, the world is confident that it will eventually win its battle against the COVID-19 virus with the availability of various vaccines and advancement in the medical field. But the world has yet to find its eureka moment in solving the world's plastic waste problem. It is a sad reality that the Philippines is not in a good place when it comes to plastic waste. A 2015 University of Georgia study revealed that the Philippines is the world's third largest source of plastic waste leaking into the ocean, next to China and Indonesia. And it is alarming that there are no indications that we have improved our ranking yet. This is occurred despite the presence of Republic Act number 9003 or the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act, which was enacted 20 years ago and considered a groundbreaking legislation for it provided a comprehensive ecological solid waste reduction and management program. Unfortunately, we were better at legislation than implementation. Long past the deadlines for many of the mandates under the law, open dump sites are still operational. Mixed waste are still being collected in urban areas. There is still no national ecology center to speak of, and the burden of waste reduction, segregation, and management mostly fell into the lap of households and the local governments. In the meantime, those that make the products that become discards in very short spans of time have always had the ethical but not the legal responsibility to ensure the recyclability of their products and packaging. Thus, as the chair of the Senate Environment Committee, I acted decisively and sponsored the EPR bill, which seeks to institutionalize the practice of extended producer responsibility on plastic packaging waste, amending for the purpose RA number 9003 or the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000. Around the world, there is abundant evidence that EPRs have allowed municipalities and taxpayers to deflect the financial burden of waste management and transferred it to producers. The public costs of hauling and disposal were reduced. More importantly, EPR system have resulted in decreased volume of waste for final disposal and ushered in a thriving recycling industry. This measure seeks to incentivize innovation, motivate producers to take charge of the life cycle of their products, clearly defines responsibilities, and mandates and allows for better citizen participation in reaching objectives and goals. Traditional NGO, government, and industry members should no longer be antagonistic, but must pursue the shared dream of drastic reduction in our waste stream. Under the extended producer responsibility mechanism, obliged company will bear the responsibility for proper recovery, treatment, recycling, or disposal of their plastic packaging. The objective is to reduce packaging waste generation and improve repairability, recyclability, or reusability of products after they are sold and used. Because of the scale of the problem, we included among obliged companies all producers, manufacturers, and importers who offer any products or goods for consumption or use, whether for sale or for free, of the general public. We excluded at this time those companies that are micro and small scale, as not only can they not bear the burden of an EPR, but their sheer numbers will make this law impracticable to implement and monitor. We also focus for now on plastics and encourage plastic neutrality in the bill, meaning a company can withdraw from the waste stream an equivalent amount of discards that its production will cost. Obliged company may also set up or contract with a legal entity to handle the resource recovery of such waste on their behalf. I will not discuss in detail the other provisions of the bill. In this video message instead, I have instructed the Senate Environment Committee Secretariat to provide you with a copy of the bill and a summary of its salient provisions for better appreciation. The bill is a recognition that it is not good policy to merely expect all our citizens to segregate and manage their waste, and for local governments to deal with the massive problems brought about by lack of cradle to grave responsibility among producers. We need to rescue our country from being a marine litter culprit and demonstrate that a developing country can and will make this work. This can only be done with the help of the producers. You know, in our national language, there is no indigenous word for trash. We had adopted the Spanish basura for waste. What we have instead are sentiments like sayang, which means what a waste, or kalat, which is things not in their proper place. Both of these are quite easily solvable. We are looking forward to a future where we will only produce products that last long, are entirely repairable, and whose materials will go right back to the factories as materials for new things once they are no longer useful. Until then, society is operating on borrowed time for our planet. But be that as it may, Senate Bill 2425 is not in its final form. As we deliberate its provision in the Senate plenary, we will welcome proposed amendments meant to further the objectives of the bill and promote the efficient exercise of the EPR system. We welcome your suggestions. The EPR is not meant to put additional burden to the companies who are plastic packaging waste generators, but rather it is an acknowledgement and a call for help that plastic waste problem will not be solved without their invaluable cooperation. Thank you for listening. God bless and stay safe.
All right. Thank you so much, Senator Villar. I couldn't agree more with so many of your points. It is obviously something that we all need to work together in order to accomplish, and I'm very glad that those bills are getting pushed through. Now, up next, we have a representative from BEST, one of the waste management operators in the country, to give us a few insights on the problems that they encounter in waste management. So please welcome Ms. Emelita Aguinaldo, who is the Senior Vice President for Operations.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Worldwide Fund for Nature, for inviting me and our company, the IPM Holdings, where BEST is a subsidiary. And we are privileged to be speaking with you and share with you what we are doing as a waste management company in terms of preventing plastic waste from getting into our bodies of water and ultimately to the ocean. As what we understand, that EPR is not only the responsibility of the producers of packaging products, but also the consumers of these products. From my standpoint, it should be EPCR, or extended producers and consumers' responsibilities to manage the waste they produce and consume in an environment-friendly manner. There are 3 P's that I would like to contribute to the success of this initiative. The first P is people. People need to cooperate and change their behaviors in dealing with the waste they produce. They need to be mindful of what they consume and need to reduce, reuse, and recycle the waste they generate. Segregation at source is the key by placing in proper containers for processing and recycling and treatment. This is mandated under Republic Act 9003 or the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000, which include all establishments, commercial, industrial, institutional. These also include most especially the manufacturers of the packaging products, which we call the obliged companies. They should be responsible enough to have a cradle-to-cradle mentality when they produce these products. They have to consider the efficient use of materials, energy, and resources they use in their production, as well as the recycling, reusability, and the final disposal of these packaging materials. The second P is policy. Like in the proposed policy for EPR in the Senate, and some existing policies and ordinances, both from the national and local levels. These policies need to be strictly implemented and enforced, and providing incentives and funding to encourage compliance. Third P is plans and programs. That are implementable with corresponding infrastructure systems, technologies, markets, funding mechanisms, and of course, advocacy using the social media is a very important component. Our company, Basic Environmental Systems and Technologies, excuse me. Or BEST for short, under the IPM Holdings, is a publicly listed company and has been in the waste management service business since 1999. We are not producer of packaging materials, but we are collecting them, recycling, composting, and disposing the residuals to a sanitary landfill. As part of our business, we also own and build sanitary landfills throughout the country. And we also enter into public-private partnerships with the local governments in order to serve the disposal needs of cluster of cities and municipalities who don't have the necessary funds and expertise to build one. We also own a refuse-derived fuel facility that process high calorific waste, plastic waste, single-use plastics as alternative fuel raw materials for co-processing with agricultural waste for cement manufacturing. We have also our composting facility inside our sanitary landfill in Morong, Rizal, and we strive to have a closed-loop system in waste management. As part of our advocacy and corporate social responsibility to incentivize waste segregation at source, we launched this trash to cashback program in 2019 and anchored on sustainability and circular economy principles. This is a very simple process. Those participating, they visit the bextra.com.ph and sign up. They segregate at source. They bring the recyclables to the nearest center. And then the environmental points are converted into bextra cashback. Environmental points will be transferred to the bextra account. Cashback can be used to redeem grocery items from the mobile redemption store or pay for your purchase of any bextra outlets. And then we have this logistic arm, we call it the May Basurero, that will collect the recyclables and then deliver it to the partner recyclers and upcyclers for processing into new products. Since then, it has been gaining lots of interest and participation among corporations like Meralco, BDO, Mondelez, PLDT, Coca-Cola, the local government units also of Quezon City, all the districts and barangays, Manila, BGC and McKinley in Taguig, the national government, the DENR, also schools, BPOs, MMDA, private establishments, homeowners association, Rotary clubs, civil organizations, civil society organizations, and individuals participate. And today we have more than 21,000 members, and we call them the Eco Warriors, who bring their recyclables to the center and exchange it with environmental points and redeem these points from the Be Extra outlets. So Be Extra Philippines is a sister company that digitalized this program. It has an online ordering and delivery gateway with built-in cashback loyalty program and marketing platform. And they offers business, especially the SMEs, their very own customer loyalty program. So this company manages the account of every Eco Warrior and the environmental points earned and the redemption of these EPs to their member outlets like food and beverage, hotel chains, retail shops, real estate companies. Lazada is also part of this. The Bayad Center, where you can use your environmental points to pay for your bills. There are regular setups of these centers, and there are pop-ups also, which is very convenient to people to drop their recyclables with their names and account numbers, especially so that we have the pandemic and social distancing is a must. The only requirement is that these recyclables should be clean and properly segregated. It is very easy to open an account, just need to have an email address and transaction is online. And then the environmental points earned can easily be tracked because this system is data-driven and very transparent. That's why the corporations that have their sustainability goals, they really want to participate because they would want to keep track of how much waste, plastic waste, have been diverted from the landfills. The benefits derived from this program are waste segregation and collection. We put value to waste. This is an incentivized waste segregation and value-added waste recovery platform. Exclusive rewards to earned environmental points and cashback, redeem products and services from Be Extra partner stores. Anyone can be an Eco Warrior. And of course, the third point is we have to have a cleaner and greener environment for all, as it promotes segregation at source in any community. Recyclables are given new life as a new product. It's data-driven and promotes environmental community building. With this Trust to Cashback program, we hope that many will join this advocacy and be part of the solution of our increasing garbage and pollution problem in the country, as well as in the oceans and seas. So with this, good day, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very, very much for that, Ms. Aguinaldo. That was a very eye-opening talk. Actually, while you were talking, I've actually now downloaded the Be Extra app and looking at the recycling centers near me. Wonderful, wonderful initiative.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so, ladies and gentlemen, now, of course, to highlight the power of recycling in this initiative, WWF Philippines has prepared a short video about plastic packaging. So how about we take a look?
What is a brand? A brand is identity. A brand is trust. A brand is everything. We want people to remember our brand, but not for the wrong reasons. A brand should last forever. Our packaging shouldn't. So how can our brand be remembered for being part of an important solution to a critical problem? Step 1, recognize the problem. Plastic waste is one of the planet's biggest problems, and it's only growing bigger. The plastic problem isn't just ugly, it also gets more and more expensive to deal with. Step 2, recognize where our brands play a role. Currently, packaging makes the bulk of our plastic waste because most plastic packaging is made to be used once for a little while and then thrown away. This amounts to millions of tons of plastic waste annually, like 73,000 blue whales diving into the ocean every year. This is because our collection and treatment systems are unable to cope with the amount of waste we're producing. The collection rate in low-income countries is often below 50%, and up to 93% of the waste is dumped directly in the environment. Step 3, recognize how our brands can drive change. We can help to transform the journey of plastics from a linear to a circular economy. Instead of using plastics that are condemned to become waste, we can reduce using plastic unnecessarily, shift to sustainable sources for plastic, and increase plastic recovery. But no one can do this alone. That's why we can work together through a system called Extended Producer Responsibility, or EPR. In EPR, with oversight from governments, the Producer Responsibility Organization is tasked with setting up, developing, and maintaining this system to take back plastic waste from consumers on behalf of all businesses. To make the system work, all producers need to chip in and invest in the EPR. By reducing unnecessary plastic and transparently sharing how much plastic we're using, by taking responsibility from design to the end of life of our products, and most importantly, by supporting EPR and working with governments and other partners to improve our waste management systems and consumer awareness, we can make our brands to be part of a powerful solution. Because our brand should last forever, our packaging shouldn't.
Thank you very much, WWF Philippines, for that very short but impactful video. Now, today we also have a guest from the United Nations Environment Programme, or UNEP, to talk about how we can engage stakeholder groups, most especially the business sector, for the EPR roadmap implementation. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Vincent Aloysius, Program Management Officer of the UNEP.
Thank you, Mark. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you all. I'm very glad to participate in this EPR program launch event today. We are happy to support the EPR program roadmap project. So my name is Vincent Aloysius, Program Management Officer at Sea Circular Project of the UN Environment Programme, UNEP. Sea Circular is an initiative by the UN Environment Programme and the coordinating body on the seas of East Asia, or COPC, and it is supported by funding from the government of Sweden to inspire market-based solutions and encourage enabling policies to solve marine plastic pollution at source. The project is being implemented in 6 countries in Southeast Asia: Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and the Philippines. Now, Sea Circular works with national and provincial governments, private sector corporations, civil society groups and NGOs, and many other stakeholders. Now, one of the key areas that we want to focus on in particular is private sector engagement, because we want to look for market-based solutions across the plastic value chain. Now, we are doing this to support good governance and policy making in promoting circular economy principles. Now, the program C Circular focuses on interventions on supporting market-based solutions, enhancing also science-based basis for decision-making, and generating outreach to support in awareness and behavior change, and also in promoting a regional approach through collaboration and networking. Now, we are very happy with our partnership with the WWF team in the Philippines. We are confident that the work that they have done so far, they have made great progress already, and we are confident that through our collaboration, we'll be able to support in making further headway in the path towards plastic circularity. In the Philippines, extended producer responsibility is expected to be a significant part of the solution to curb plastic waste leakage. In line with the national government's efforts towards finalizing the National Plan of Action on Marine Litter, C Circular has partnered with WWF Philippines with the aim to support the enablement of an extended producer responsibility scheme. So what we aim to do is, look for solutions that will be practical, getting inputs from various stakeholders, bringing that together into recommendations that will help in formulation of good, practical, and workable policies. The project will facilitate and build capacity and provide recommendations for the adoption of an extended producer responsibility scheme. The partnership also aims to build on this EPR roadmap through development of toolkits that will help to align all stakeholders and their roles in enabling extended producer responsibility. So going forward, we look at working closely with the team at WWF Philippines, and also in supporting legislators in leading to the path towards the adoption of a successful EPR scheme. So I'll keep it short and sweet. I think that's really the message that I wanted to share today. And I think the rest of the speakers and our colleagues, Zah and Ina, has done a good job already on explaining what the project is about and the roadmap is heading towards. So I will end it there, and I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aloysius, for helping us out with that. And C Circular, what a wonderful organization, and we appreciate all the help that you're giving to the Philippines and, of course, some of the other Southeast Asian countries in the region. We would, of course, like to also give a big thank you to all of our guests today for their inspiring talks and opening our eyes in addressing this plastic issue of the country. As was mentioned earlier, of course, we are the third largest plastic polluter according to that 2015 study. Hopefully, we can go down the rankings rather than up with that. Now, I'm sure both you and I would want to commemorate this event today. So, ladies and gentlemen, may I please ask everyone to open their cameras and join us for a quick Zoom feed. I think that's what they're called these days, which will be facilitated by our friends from Comco, Southeast Asia. Over to you guys.
Hi everyone. May I please ask everyone to turn your cameras on and have them ready as we'll be having our photo ops. Okay, I have
everyone, cameras on.
Yeah, I have 3 pages here. So let's start with page 1. In 3, 2, 1, smile. Second page. 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, I got it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. And now to our lovely friends from the media. It is finally time for you to be part of today's discussion. I know that we've had quite a few questions in the chat box, but we're now officially opening the floor for the media Q&A portion for you to better understand EPR and just how it can help the Philippines waste reduction and management system. So in line with this, I'd like to welcome
Take off, follow me.